Around the world, you are listening to TalkTainmentRadio.com. And we go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and your co-host, that it would be me, Mr. Bobby. And this is radio the way it should be heard. Now, don't call in yet. I'm going to give you the numbers and the email address where you can call in. But first of all, we'd like to introduce to you and present to some Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who will be speaking in just a moment. He's the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. This is the premiere of our new 2-hour show from 9 a.m. until 11. Yes, you have requested it, and you have helped make it happen. And we are so grateful for this opportunity to present this, to get your questions in, to have Mr. Fuller answer your questions. This is a momentous day. It's probably more than what I can even imagine, but I know there's been a lot of thought and a lot of work behind it. So we want to thank everyone who is responsible, for doing this, and also for you, the listeners, your calls, your suggestions, your email, whether they be good or bad, whatever that means, you have been tremendous. So I want to thank you. And on that particular note, I understand this morning when I came in, I was told that we are approximately $800 short of where we were supposed to be, or where we want to be at. So we need about $800 more dollars. So if you know someone, know your friends, no matter how small or how large the donation is, send those donations in so that we don't have to do this but once a year. When you do, if you still feel like mailing it in, you can mail your donations into the K&E World Network. That is K&E World Network, LLC, to Talktainment Radio, 462 Walnut Street. Now, this is important. Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. And please, if you use that one, don't forget to put your email address on there. And you can send that to edozier@talktainmentradio.com, and so that he can mail you out your tax-deductible receipt. It is easier for you to go to PayPal. Just go to the talktainmentradio.com, click on the sponsor, and follow the instructions to make your pledge. And, that's the quickest way to do that. And you will be glad that you did. I think that is all that we have to do. Again, this is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept Talk Show. 2 hours now with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. The reason why I stress that, because on my way in, I got to thinking about that title, the United, which means together, independent, individual thought, compensatory, and that's the word that got me today, compensatory. What does that mean? What does that mean? We're going to ask Mr. Fuller that. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning. Thank you. How are you?
Good morning, and I'm still learning.
You are still learning. I thought about that word compensatory as I was coming in. I had gotten a cup of coffee, and I used a word in response to one of the store clerks, and she asked me what did that word mean. And as I responded to her, the thought came in my mind that the word I was using also has a compensatory connotation to it. And what does that mean? It means a word that I made up for that definition that I made up. Uh, in all your research, when you thought about compensatory, in particular to the book that you have written, what do you mean by that word compensatory?
Just means making up for what's missing in simple language. Making up for what's missing. In other words, if you have something that should be in place and is not in place, you make up for it by putting what should be in place in place. Every move that you make is compensatory. Just walking across a room is compensatory, meaning you have a purpose for doing so. You got up out of the chair, you went over to the table. You were compensating for not being at the table by going from where you are to the table.
Mm-hmm.
You were making up for that. Every move that you make is compensatory. You on your way to work. You're on your way to work to do what? To compensate for what you don't have if you do not go to work. And you are told that you have to come in today because if you don't come in today, you won't be compensated. You will not get paid for the day that you took off when you should have been here at work. So we will take that out of your pay. You will not be compensated for that. And then there are other forms of compensation for people who don't have what they call the compensatory revenue that they would get from working. It's called unemployment compensation. You're making up for what's missing, or trying to make up for what's missing. Usually it's inadequate, but you do the best you can. But they say that you need to have something to kind of carry a person over until they can get a job where they can be, quote, unquote, fully compensated. And so they will give them unemployment compensation in the meantime. So everything is compensatory. Wearing a pair of glasses. In fact, in the textbook for victims of racism, I use this word. I have a whole several pages, well, at least a couple of pages, where I use the word compensation or compensatory and give illustrations as to what it means. So people get a pretty good idea of what that is about.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is missing on this planet is a thing called justice, generally speaking, among all people, meaning what? And I made up a compensatory definition for the word justice because I was not satisfied with the way that the word was being used, and the word is being presented in dictionaries. So I gave two parts to it. Compensatory definition for the word justice is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's part one. And part two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And then I even made up a compensatory counter-racist codified word guide. That's a whole book that I use to compensate for what I consider to be confusing language.
Yes, sir.
In the English language, particularly when it comes to issues of talking about race and or racism.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I have a whole book, that section, I call it just an extension of the basic textbook that I have put out, and that's a compensatory counter-racist codified word guide to make up for the words that are confusing in the English language.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Since you mentioned that, and I was going to do that later on in this program a couple of times, but for those who are new to the show, those who are listening, and we do have listeners from all over the planet. As a matter of fact, I get calls from all over the planet about this show and different types of information. The main question that has come up is, how can a person or people get a hold of get a copy of the book and the word guide? And can you address the situation concerning people who do live in different countries trying to obtain a copy of the book and word guide?
I'm still in the process of trying to work to get the book distributed and to a larger audience throughout the entire world. Right now, I'm kind of confined to what they call the continental United States.
Yes, sir.
And there are a few books that are sent to the United Kingdom in the form of what they call England, specifically, and in Canada, which is just north of what they call the continental United States. But it's a very, very cumbersome operation to do that. Right now, within a couple of months, I intend to compensate for that situation by by being able to actually distribute
Yes, sir.
the book to a greater audience, mostly starting off with, I have been told, the United Kingdom, what they call places associated with England and Canada, and then distributed maybe to France and other places from that, and hopefully including all of Africa or South America, if they can extend it to that. But that would have to be, I've been told in a couple of months, that might likely be a possibility of being compensated for.
Okay.
Because right now it's not being done. And now I like also the ad that on producejustice.com, if anybody goes to that site where you usually get the textbooks, the basic textbook, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and the word guide, they're temporarily out of stock.
Wow.
But that's only temporary, and just don't buy any of the what you call the bootleg copies and all like that. Anything that appears might be suspicious. I would say don't do that, because then that would undermine what I'm trying to do.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
all right. So
but that would be taken care of maybe in a couple of weeks at the very most.
All righty. We will we will hit that again in the second hour of our new format. Okay, let's see here. Let me go to this here. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to share with you. Just, I guess you could say it's for the younger crowd. It's called Super Cool, and all it does is they give the latest in the hot R&B music of yesterday and today. Now, it broadcasts on Saturdays exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. So if you like to get your groove on or hear something old or even something new, you can do that by tuning into Super Cool, hot R&B music of yesterday and today, broadcasting on Saturdays exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. All righty, the phone lines are now open, so you may call by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And I'd like to report that the letters are in question rotation, and because of the 2 hours now, there is a good chance that I can get to some of those letters. Or emails. So let's start off with a letter from Brother Brown. He writes this: Mr. Fuller, white male and black female relations are rampant in my country. In your book, you said that marriage under the system of racism is an illusion, and the best way to resist racism in this area is to not get married. Please give us an expanded comment on why we should know when a black female is having sexual relations with a white male, and why not marrying helps to defeat white supremacy.
Well, actually, that's just one of the suggestions out of all the hundreds of suggestions that are put forth under the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. It may not always apply, but generally speaking, I say that it should apply, or people should always think about making it apply, depending on what the circumstances are. Now, up to now, so-called marriages don't exist among the victims of racism. Why? Because the system of white supremacy does not allow marriage. They say that they do, but marriages have to be protected. When you have a so-called marriage, that marriage has to be protected by an entire society. And when all of the elements that go into protecting a people in an entire society are not in place, you cannot really say that you have a marriage. So it's phony. You go through the rituals and all like that, but that's not what you really have. Because if you have a system of white supremacy, it's not possible for a victim of white supremacy to be married to anybody. I will state that again. In a system of white supremacy, a victim of white supremacy cannot be married to anybody. If you go according to the definition of what a marriage is, a marriage is not just between the people involved, the two people, or in some places where they have what you call polygamy, or 3, 4, 5, 7 people maybe, or whatever. You don't have that for people of color in a system of white supremacy. That's an illusion. Why? Because it has to be protected by people who have the intention of doing the correct thing by those people of color in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and in conflicts that we call war. They're supposed to be protected by an overall system, by the majority of the people on the planet who believe in doing the correct thing,
yes, sir,
whomever they happen to be.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not in place, in rock-solid cement, if you don't have that protection, you don't really functionally have a marriage. That's according to the compensatory definition of what a marriage is.
Okay. All right, Brother Brown, there you go. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number one, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Greetings, everyone. This is Brother Warren calling from New Orleans. And one comment in the question, is as I was watching on Monday night the remake of Roots and the scene of the slave ship, I couldn't help but think about the compensatory concept when they had the slave ship scene. My question to Mr. Fuller is, according to the definition of compensation, making up for what's missing or what's lacking, when we look at the system of white supremacy, it pushes the value of white skin, white beauty, white aesthetic. You've also mentioned that people shouldn't brag about what their color is, but would not victims of white supremacy extolling the beauty of their skin and how they look, would that not be compensatory under the system of white supremacy?
Mr. Fuller?
Would not, many times, and I have to apologize for that, I don't really understand the question. What now?
Okay, if under the system of white supremacy, white skin, white beauty, in other words, looking like a white person, is held up as the standard and the model of beauty, would not a compensatory action be for victims of white supremacy holding up their dark skin color, their dark features, facial features and hair as a model of beauty? Because you often said that one should not brag or put emphasis out of pride on what color of their skin. So would extolling the beauty of black people's skin be compensatory under the system of white supremacy?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, well, people are only beautiful according to what they do. It's not just a visual thing. There are no beautiful people in the system of white supremacy. I'm just going to make a flat statement there, because compensatory codification is about making flat statements, and then what you do then is try to figure on the basis of logic whether that flat statement is what? True or false.
Or false, right.
Always start with that. So I'm saying there are no beautiful people in the system of white supremacy. During the existence of white supremacy, people are not beautiful. The white people are not beautiful, and the non-white people are not beautiful. Why? Too many of the white people are practicing what? White supremacy. So you have a system of people interaction that has no beauty in it, because it's a system of dominating and mistreating people based on color. But even if it wasn't based on color, any system that's based on mistreatment of people makes people ugly. So all people under the system of white supremacy are at the very least, not beautiful people. You don't have beautiful people. You can't go around and claim that people are beautiful. There's no way to be a beautiful person in the system of white supremacy. You have to get rid of the system and replace it with a system that's better. And that system, theoretically, would be a system of justice. You have to guarantee that no person is mistreated, and guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you don't have a beautiful system, and if you don't have a beautiful system, you don't have beautiful people.
Okay. All righty. My brother from New Orleans, thank you very much for your call. Remember, in the system or of the system of white supremacy, that is where that is contained at. Let's go to line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Hello?
You're on.
Oh, wow. I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. I'm crying right now, actually, but the tears of joy come when I'm most excited as I can be. It's an automatic thing. It's an autonomic thing. It just tears come out. Salt and both sorrow and joy, but this is joy. My name is Bill. I'm from Rochester, New York. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Bill. What is your question, sir?
This is monumental. I woke. My computer started by itself, and I'm actually talking to Mr. Fuller. The first time I spoke with him, I was listening to a lecture by Dr. Welsing, and it was like 20 years old, and she always quoted his phone number. And something told me to call the number, and he answered the phone.
Yes.
I'll explain this. And actually, everything that was just said is exactly what my question was. I was listening to a lecture. This is how I live. I got both books. I'm going to order 2 more because the ones that I have are going to get worn right out, highlighted. And I'm on my second read for the compensatory code concept book. And I'm on my first read for the word guide because it's kind of lengthy, but I internalize this stuff on a real level.
Mm-hmm.
I suggest any and everybody that can possibly hear this, do that. And but the question that was just answered was exactly what it was. I was listening to a lecture the other day by Mr. Fuller, and by the way, I was listening to a lecture the other day by Mr. Fuller, and he was talking about why be proud to be black. What does it do? What purpose? And I can't find the lecture, or the show. But anyway, just waking up and hearing this, and actually everything that I've been thinking about, I think he was talking about the faulty reasoning and being over concerned with black pride, because God, or our higher powers, we made it, the Creator, didn't create us to be concerned with that. We just are who we are. That's the essence of what I heard. Mm-hmm. But what I heard just now was exactly what I was thinking.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say thank you. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Fuller's phone number is 202-484-5461. I've internalized that a long time ago. But I will be calling him again. My name is Bill. Another thing I like to mention is the musical thing. He talked about the difference between noise and sound, and between noise and music. And he mentioned people that I'll further this conversation with him personally. But I'm so grateful. I can't believe that this is happening. I'm actually on the radio.
Sorry about that, Bill. Sorry about that. But we do thank you, Bill, from New York, for calling in and for your comments, and that you were able to speak with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. That is not taken lightly. Thank you very much. Let's go to line number 3. Thank you, Bill. Line number 3, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question, please?
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Good morning. Mr. Fuller, could you explain to us why people that read and attempt to apply the compensatory concept are not followers of Neely Fuller Jr.?
Oh, yes, definitely. You're not followed. Don't follow Neely Fuller Jr. anywhere or anybody else, really. Don't follow people. People are seriously flawed. Mm-hmm. I want to emphasize that over and over again. We are in a system of racism that dominates all of the people of this planet, one way or another. It's an evil system. So everybody is poisonous. Neely Fuller is poisonous. He's loaded with potential for mistakes. He has all kinds of flaws that he's not even aware of. Everybody is seriously flawed.
Everybody.
Yes, I mean that stuff of going around praising some person and whatnot, and even saying that a person is your mentor. No, your mentor should be whatever created this universe, whatever created you, whatever created every grain of sand. Follow the logic. That's what that's your mentor put something in the universe called logic. So you follow logic. You don't follow people. It's always a mistake, no matter how so-called brilliant, quote unquote, that the person may be labeled to be. I mean, a person who is knows how to speak in such a manner that they can move millions, I mean, to go here and go there and do this and do that. Or the person seems to be talented in all kinds of fields. They can fly an airplane. They can go to the bottom of the ocean, and they have all kinds of physical attributes that they can accomplish. They can run faster than anybody. They can play chess better than anybody, and all like that. That's still not a person to follow. That person has some type of flaws. And if you can follow all of the basic things that person can do, or the grand things that person can do, that's a plus. But you get in the habit of following that person. When that person makes a mistake, you're going to make the same mistake. And there are some people who say that, well, some people are mistake-proof. Well, now, according to logic, what does that say? That's the biggest mistake being made right there.
That is, yes.
When a person says, I don't make mistakes, well, oh, wow, do you really back off then? Because that person just made the biggest mistake they're ever going to make, thinking that they don't make a mistake.
Yes. It's funny that you say that because, again, when I brought up this subject, this is why I really like the title of your book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what it is. United, but it's independent, which means your thought, what you do. That's just excellent. Good point, even though I often have said that you're my mentor, but meaning that you have cut the light on for me to follow. I like that. We have another call? Yeah. Okay. Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your comment?
All right. Good morning, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby.
Good morning.
Congratulations on the 2-hour show.
Thank you.
I was one of the people who donated.
Thank you.
All right. So, question for Mr. Fuller: would it be wise to compensate for, let's say, transgender behavior, interracial marriage? What if propaganda was used black man cooperating with black women. Could propaganda be a good form of compensation?
Mr. Fuller?
Well, I always say counter-racist sexuals should be recognized. In other words, all sexuality should be programmed, you might say, codified in a compensatory way, codified to compensate for all of the forms of sexuality that are not working. Okay, that includes so-called heterosexual and all like that. None of it is working because you have this system of racism that's dominating everything. And the racists pick up everything. They will use anything that will cause greater confusion. So in the area of sex, they have pushed that button that they are going to what you call degenderize, or you can have a lot of terms for it. I made up a lot of terms for it. Degenderization, sexual scrambling, just anything that will do what? Cause confusion among the non-white people. And recently, I'll say in the last 30 years, they have centered on sexual activity as being one of their prime strategies for causing confusion among the non-white people of this planet. And they are doing that even as we speak on a wholesale basis. Just anything that will cause confusion. They keep adding categories. See, that just like they did with the racial categories that started off with 3 categories and now have 21. And people haven't changed that much in that span of time since 1860. But now you went from 1860 in the racial categories from 3 categories, white, black, and mulatto, to now you have 21 categories, and one of those categories is some other race. And you can't even describe anything like that. What do you mean by that? And then they don't even point to color consistently, except the non-color white, if you consider white a non-color, if you're talking about people, but white is a color if you're talking about paint. More confusion. So you do the same thing with sexuality. You come up and say, oh, you just don't have male and female, what you call straight, and that's not even listed as a category, by the way. They have LGBT, and recently they have added another one called Q for queer. All right? Because some of the people who say that they are queer said they want to be recognized too. But what does all that mean? And the main thing, is it an improvement? And I say there's reason to believe none of this talk is an improvement over anything. And none of everybody who's pushing all of this, meaning the white supremacists primarily, they have the intention of strengthening the system of white supremacy. That's what's behind all of this degenderization among non-white people, people of color. They are pushing that in order to strengthen the system of white supremacy. There's no other explanation for it. If you say that you want to so-called deviate or degenderize and you are a person of color, the white supremacists will beat a path to your door and say, how much support do you need? I will help you as any way, which way you want to go with this to get away from what we call the straight category, which is not even listed, by the way, under the LGBTQ banner. What happened to straight? You're going to abolish that? And so what are they saying? What are they saying? That needs to be examined. People need to back off, including people who are what you call transgender or bi or gay or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I have had it to compensate for this, to try to put some kind of context to it that makes sense. I've said add a new category along with all the categories that are now being added, because there'll probably be 2 or 3 dozen more. So we'll say what about the counter-racist sexual, which means the male, non-white male with the non-white female working to end racism and using their sexuality to do so? I think that would be an excellent combination to counteract all of this scrambling that the white supremacists are doing among non-white people.
All righty. TalkTavidRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3. Wednesday and Sunday evenings, blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTavidRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to get into your Gmails and more phone calls. All of that coming up next on TalkTavidRadio.com. Righty. Welcome back to TalkTavidRadio.com. We go where you go. You can simply download the TalkTavidRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you may Gmail me at 7, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com. This is our debut of our new format, which is a 2-hour program that we will be doing from now on. 2 full hours of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. on the compensatory concept. Yes, you requested it, and now here it is. It's here. It's now. It's happening. 2 hours of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. answering your questions or comments. Remember that everything that we are discussing is within the system of racism, white supremacy. And to better understand that, you need a copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. Mr. Fuller, we did that in the first 30 minutes. In the second 30 minutes, could you speak to that? How can they get a copy of it, the word guide, and any other information that you would like to add to that?
Well, right now you always go to producejustice.com. But right now, if you go to that site, the books are not available, but it says temporarily out of stock. But there are also some other adjustments that are being made. But you can go back to that site. Keep posted on that site, producejustice.com. Visit that site periodically for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would say 3 weeks would be the outside, and the books will again be available. In the meantime, try not to purchase any books that are out here on the market where at inflated prices. Some people have reported that some people are doing that. They're charging as much as $200, $300 for the book. I don't think they're getting that, but they shouldn't be charging that anyway. That's exploiting. I mean, I'm trying to keep the prices down as it is now. And so what the book should be, both the basic textbook and the compensatory word guide, codified word guide, should be up again on the site within a couple of weeks at the most. That's the plan, I have been told.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm keeping posted on that. I'm trying to get it accelerated so that people can get back to ordering the book at producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
Okay. Let's go to the Gmails. Mr. Bobby, can you please give us the information on how to make donations and explain that? Okay, this is what I'll do. Okay, first of all, you can go to TalkTavidRadio.com to this homepage, and there's a button there on the left-hand side, a donate button. just below the 1-877-932-9766 number. All you have to do is click the donate button. Then under the donation amount, add your whatever your pledge you want to be. Whatever you want, you can do that. And then you just click total. And then you can click just above the charge card. There's a little button there for you to click. And then fill in the pledge information and click it to continue. And then that is it. That's it. That's all you have to do. And for those of you who would like to mail, you can. K&E World Network, the letter K, the letter E, World Network, LLC, doing business as Talktainment Radio, 462 Walnut Street. But this is the important part. Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. And please, for tax deduction purposes, please add your email address and send that to edozier@talktainmentradio.com so that your tax-deductible receipts can be mailed out to you. That is very, very important. Okay, now let me click on this so we can get to our emails. Okay, our Gmails. This is from Big D. He says, good day, Mr. Fuller. Just got a comment, not really a question. Just wanted to let you know that that the new Hidden Colors 4 will premiere across the country, and the title of it is The Religion of White Supremacy. Brother Tariq Nasheed created it and he's a big fan and supporter of you, Mr. Fuller, and he refers to you several times in some of the recent interviews that he has had. He speaks on how blacks are criminalized and goes on and compliments you. So that your message is out there spreading far and wide, and that we may be on our way to replacing the system of white supremacy with a system of justice. Then he gives a trailer to it. And I have not looked at that video, but I have looked under what he was talking about, the hidden colors. I didn't know what that was, and Brother Darrell enlightened me on that. So if you would like to know that, then you can call in, or just actually you can really Google what are true colors, and they will tell you exactly what that is and what that is all about. Simply, here it is right here. It's simply a True Colors is a personality profiling system created by Don Lowry. I don't know who that is. In 1979, it was originally created to categorize 4 basic learning styles using the colors blue, orange, gold, and green to identify the strengths and challenges of these core personality types. That's all that I know about it right now. I personally have not done any more research on that, but someone had made mention, since I had mentioned that I didn't know what that was, but I did do a little bit of looking at what that was. So I will probably look at Brother Tariq's information and go on from there. Okay, let's see. Who's next up? Let's see, Shirley. Let's see here. Let's see what Shirley has to say as I get it on the screen. She says, Mr. Fuller, why do you think non-white people have a difficult time or sometimes refuse to be suspicious of white people? Is it correct for all non-white people to be suspicious of all white people because we don't know who is an actual racist, so that makes them all suspects?
Anybody who is able to be a racist who is white in a system of white supremacy probably is one. Why? You have, follow the logic. You have a system of white supremacy. It's the dominant government on the planet. There's no government superior to the government of white supremacy, or the religion. There's no religion stronger than the religion of white supremacy. What is a religion? A religion is a strong belief backed up by action. That's all any religion is. You don't have a religion if you don't have a strong belief backed up by action. About action of what kind? Action based on what the religion requires you to do. All religions have requirements. The system of white supremacy is a religion that has requirements, and it's the most successful religion that has ever produced among the people of this planet. There's no religion more successful. There's no religion more unified. No religion more unified than the religion of white supremacy. So therefore, that has the greatest influence on everybody. And it's very difficult for a white person to be born in this world, in the system of white supremacy, and not be a part of the white supremacist system. It can be done, but I don't know how it can be done. So therefore, except a white person not being able to do it, a disabled white person, meaning you don't know your colors. See, in other words, you have to know the difference between one color and another in order to be a white supremacist. Now, a person who you might say has lost his or her mind and does not know one color from another, that white person, even though the person is white, cannot be a white supremacist, because an absolute requirement of a white supremacist, first of all, is that you have to know one color from another, particularly when it comes to people. If you don't know whether a person is white or non-white, then you will have a tendency to treat everybody the same. The white supremacist is duty-bound not to treat everybody the same. You're duty-bound that if a person has color in his or her skin, but under the system of white supremacy, you are duty-bound to do harm to that person. You cannot have a mindset of that you're going to help that person do anything of constructive value. Why? The white supremacist system is designed to do just the opposite, to do harm to that person. And this is why many white people who don't consider themselves to be racist, if they put on a badge and a uniform and get a gun, they might just go according to what they have been taught all of their days. The running Negro, the Negro running away from me, when I'm telling the Negro to stop, because Negroes, dark people, people of color, are supposed to do what I say do, regardless of the circumstance. So if I can't catch him by running behind him, I'll shoot him. You know, you shoot and run away. You know, I'm a white person. I'm telling him to stop. He's moving away from me. Is he crazy? Oh, where did he get his training? I have to stop him. I have to stop that gorilla. I have to stop that animal. Like like one of the characters said in the movie Godfather, when they were talking about selling drugs, and they say, we'll sell it to the dark people, the coloreds. They're animals anyway. Let them lose their souls.
So so let me get this straight. So are you saying that the logic behind what you're saying, that a white person could be a suspected racist or could be a racist?
Yeah, don't ever call a white person a racist. You have no way of proving it.
Okay.
That's a huge mistake.
So then
under any circumstance, unless the white person says, sir, you can call me a racist because that's what I am.
Okay.
Now, if the white person says that to you, you get that person's name, and you say, Mr. Thornton, if that is his name, said that he is a racist, and that's why I call him a racist.
You have it
but
documented.
Up until then, you can say, I suspect Mr. Thornton could be a racist.
Okay.
Why? Because I have no reason to believe that he's not in a system of racism.
Okay. TalkTimeAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTimeAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We will invite your calls at 1-877-932-9766 or your Gmails at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. Continuing with the question that Shirley asked, she also has said, do you think the majority, over half of non-white people, should implement your codification in order for it to be effective? Or, in follow-up to the last question, if a non-white person is able to implement codification, should they?
Yes, I advocate that all non-white people throughout the planet pick most of the stuff that's in the suggestions that are in the textbook for victims of racism. That's why I wrote it. And I wrote it with the intention that if the majority of the non-white people of the planet follow just on what is on pages 48, 49, and 50 of the textbook, that the race problem will be greatly minimized as a problem. Let me make that correction. 58, pages 58, 59, and 60. Pages 58, 59, and 60 is just four things. The use of time and energy is under economics. If the majority of the people of color on this planet would follow those four things each and every day as best they can. In some places it'll be difficult, but you do the best you can. Follow those four things that are outlined briefly on pages 58, 59, and 60 of the basic textbook for the victims of white supremacy. It will go a long ways in solving the race problem, which is why I set out when I first started writing seriously, at least by 1984. When I got to that stage, I wasn't trying to make a contribution to solving the race problem. I was trying to write a book that would solve the race problem.
Yes, sir.
And I was directing it to the victims of racism, saying, if you do the things that are in this book, these suggestions, if we get enough people on their own as individuals, picking and choosing parts of the textbook, do the things, say the things, use the same kind of words and all like that, that we would solve the race problem. I believe that. I believe that. I have to believe that, because I said that's why I call it the compensatory code, because nothing else has worked.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is talking about, well, we can kind of modify the race problem. We can kind of, work against it. It's a constant struggle. These are the type of terms that people always use. But very few people, if any, I haven't heard anybody say, hey, let's solve the whole thing. Let's solve the whole thing so there's no such thing as any race problem anywhere on this planet.
All right.
And this is what I say should be the goal of everybody in 2016.
2016. When you hear the music, normally that would be the end of the program, but not this time. TalkTainmentradio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentradio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We're going to return. All right. It's stick and stay. Don't go away. That's right. This is the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. This is our debut program for the 2-hour session that we are now going to have, thanks to you and your wonderful donations. We still need them. We're about $800 short, so I was told when we came in. So you want to do that. All you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and the donate button at the bottom or the left-hand side of the homepage, just below the phone number, which is 818-77932-9766. Then all you do is click the donate button. Then under donation, the amount, add your pledge. You click the total. Then click continue as just above the charge cards. Then fill in the pledge information. click to continue, and then your pledge is complete. That is the easiest way to do it. We are $800 short. But for those who want to do it by regular mail, the letter K and the letter E, World Network, LLC, doing business as Talktainment Radio, 462 Walnut Street. Now, this is important. Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206. And please, please don't forget to add your email address because of the tax deduction that is with that. And you would send that to edozier@talktainmentradio.com, and he will make sure that he gets your receipt. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and Mr. Bobby are not compensated whatsoever by any of these donations, so do not get that twisted. We do not get any monies, for this. This is strictly for the program to go the 2 hours, and we are glad to do that. Mr. Neely Fuller is the author of the very fine publication called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. I say that like that because I am not running over the title. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Think about that. A textbook, a workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. Now, some people have called in and asked how Mr. Fuller got that title. We're not going to ask him that today, but on a incoming show, we will ask him to retell that story so that you will know how he got started with this. But this is very important. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. You need to get that book, and I understand that there is a word guide that you may also get attached to that book, but Mr. Fuller has given in the first hour some information concerning how to get the book, what is its current status right now, and what is going to be. So, Mr. Fuller, could you address that for our second hour listeners?
Oh, the status of the book?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you go to producejustice.com, but if you do that right now, the book will not be available. But you keep checking that website, producejustice.com, for the next couple of weeks, and then it should come up. I have been told it should be available within a couple of weeks. Again, right now, that site is temporarily shut down as far as the availability of the book. But keep going to producejustice.com, and it will, within the next 2 weeks, appear again. And then it will be available. The book will be available. In the meantime, if you have a little patience and not try to buy the book by buying it from someone at an inflated price, you can go back to that site.
Yes.
producejustice.com.
Yes. Okay, 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call to get in contact with the show, and the phone lines are now open. You can also write me by the letter, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com, and I will get the message and maybe even read it, depending upon how many I brought with me today from the Gmail. We have a Gmail from CWMNYC. He states this, Mr. Fuller, thank you. I pray that this message find both of you in the best of health. I'm inspired immensely by the topic and the concept of racism, white supremacy, and the in-depth analysis of it. As I have listened to the show, I had thought about the 9 areas and wondered why/how health isn't a direct topic. Now, I don't wish to suggest that the 9 areas need to be amended or are somehow incomplete, as I see how economics, law, labor are somewhat related. I ask this because the health of all people, and especially black people, are seemingly challenged every single moment of every single day of life. I thank both of you for the honest talk that this had not nearly been enough. So could you address why health has not been addressed?
Because it is being addressed. It's just it's addressed within the context of the 9 areas that are presented. The word health, Health. What is the if you drop the last 2 letters in the word health, you have the word what? Heal.
Heal.
See, so in a compensatory thought, you are healing the diseases, the maladies, the problems of the non-white people of the planet, and presumably of the white people of the planet, in the 9 areas of activity if you're doing the correct thing. If you're doing the correct thing, the best possible thing that you can possibly do in the first area of activity, economics, going in alphabetical order, and then continuing on in education, do the correct thing in education, educate people correctly rather than propagandize them and tell them a bunch of false stuff that's going to be harmful, teach them things that are going to be harmful. That's a part of the education process. Glorify death. Death is not healing. You can get death anyway. You're going to get that. Everything begins with death. There's an old saying, they said, that comes out of the Far East. Life begins with death. So you have death before you're born. So you're going to get that anyway. So if you have out of death comes life, a thing called life, then you want that life to be all in a healing process all the time, because you are constantly deteriorating from the time that you were born. You begin to die from the time that you were born. From the instant you appear on earth, you are starting a process. That first breath that you take is heading toward that last breath that you take. You should always take that into consideration. So they kind of complement each other. But what you do is try to stay here and be constructive the whole time you're here.
Mm-hmm.
So that continues on into entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And if you do the healthiest thing in the area of sex, do the healthiest thing in the area of politics, in other words, stop misleading people and stop saying things that are not true, and always have the correct intentions, because politics is all about having the correct intentions in the way you interact with people.
Yes, sir.
That's what it's all about. If you're healthy when you do that and have a healthy mind and always thinking in terms of having constructive results out of every move you make, then you have healthy politics. So you do the same thing in all of those areas of activity. The whole compensatory code is about health, because you're healing all the things that need healing, and that's just about everything that people are involved in on account of you have this non-healthy situation caused and sustained by what? The system of white supremacy.
Okay. Well, we hope that answered your question there, Brother C. from, I guess, from New York City. Let's see here. Can we go to the phone lines? Yes. Okay. Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Mr. Bobby.
Good morning.
I'm glad you guys got PayPal in action, and you see now everything is moving.
Yeah, you were one of that made the suggestion. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, my brother.
Anything that's constructive. So my question to Mr. Fuller is it condoned for individuals to get compensated off of your work and your philosophy or your suggestions, but make sure to mention you as the source?
Mr. Fuller?
Should people be compensated for?
No, not should be. Not should they be compensated. if they are getting compensated off of your work, but they make sure to mention you as the source, is that
well, that's the law
condoned?
of compensation. You always identify where you got anything from, and if something comes from you, you say so. Why? Because in the law of compensation says you always oppose falsehood. And what opposes falsehood? Truth. Truth is that which is. You know what something is. Always tell it like it is. Don't make up things. And if you're making up something, well, that itself, telling something like it is if you say that you're making it up. Or if it's something comes, if water comes from a certain, if a stream comes from a certain river, and you say, where does this stream come from? And you say, oh, this stream that's coming down this street, it's coming from those fire hoses that are up the street, up there at the fire station. So this stream of water that is coming down here is coming from those fire hoses at the fire station. And it's the same way. Just give the source of whatever it is you're talking about.
Just to add on that, because you made mention of bootlegging your work and your material, and that you didn't, condone that, because people are, bootlegging your material word for word, and you're not getting any compensation for that. So that's what I'm, attaching that to what you said.
They should not be doing that. That is a form of theft. They are stealing. You call it what it is. If I do that, I'm stealing. And so that should be pointed out if Fuller is doing it. If anybody who's stealing anything should be revealed.
But they're mentioning your name. They're mentioning your name as, the source. They're stealing, but they're saying, okay, Neely Fuller is the guy who said, who has this philosophy. And they're making money. That's what I'm saying. Do you condone that?
Well, it depends on the context and in which they are doing it and how they are going about doing it. Everybody kind of, you might say, borrows from everybody else. But it's such a thing as what they call, somebody invented a term called fair usage. But if you just lift what another person is saying, just whole cloth, and then say, I want compensation for having done it. It's like another person builds a house, and you come along and collect all the money when the house is sold. Now that shouldn't be done. But now, if you just sort of like helped expedite it, you cut the lawn or something like that, or kind of added some trimmings or something, and identified yourself as the person had added the trimmings and all like that, then you can be compensated for whatever you added and all like that. But don't just take the whole thing and say, this is mine, this is me, that fellow that came along and did the heavy lifting and whatnot, just discount him altogether as far as compensation, or just throw him a little bone or two and whatnot, but I'll walk off with the whole wagon load, whatever it is.
Okay.
It all has to do with the concept of justice.
Okay. Let me ask this, Mr. Fuller, and caller, stay on the line. You said to stand by your work, but if someone is using your work, mentioning your name, not exactly copying it verbatim, but very close to plagiarism, but it's not word for word. I guess they're adding whatever they add to it, but they're being compensated for piggybacking off of whatever you have written. But then they state their words. Is that wrong for them to do that, even though they are standing by their work?
Here again, everybody should identify what they are doing.
Okay.
And make it very clear that this, whoever the they is, make it very clear who that is. And because the white supremacists are very skilled at looking at anybody doing anything of color. And they are very skilled at easing in something that they are doing, and that in a few years you won't be able to tell who's doing what. And then the white supremacists naturally just take over everything because they are very skilled at doing that.
Yes, sir.
They are the masters of words because
Yes, sir.
we're talking about the use of words here. And they are the masters of words. They know how to infuse their ideas into anything that anybody is doing.
Okay.
This is why
I'm still a little confused.
I try to make a very, very sharp distinction between what I am saying and what somebody else is saying.
Okay.
And anything
I know people
that anybody
quoting
tries
verbatim.
to do. Hello?
I know people quoting, not to cut you off, I know people quoting you verbatim, word for word. You understand that they're not infusing any white supremacy doctrine inside of it. They're getting compensated for it and saying, hey, shout out to Mr. Fuller.
Wait a minute. They're saying that this is Mr. Fuller saying this?
No, basically they're saying they're using Mr. Fuller as a source, for the information, which is great because it's great information. But at the end of the day, they're getting compensated for it, and it's no kickback to you. That's what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
Well,
do you condone that?
Well, it's like setting up a church, you might say, and I do not subscribe to setting up a church. And someone has even said there should be a church, a compensatory church, in the traditional sense, start setting up churches and then having individual preachers go out and spread the word of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, and even having churches under that name. And I have said, no, that's the four-wall concept. My material is addressed to the individual. It's compensatory. You already have plenty of churches of all kinds. So you don't need another church with another type of religious flavor, you might say. You already have enough religious conflict between the churches that are already here, even among just one denomination, the Christian church. They're scattered all over the place, a different church with a different sign on every corner. And so Neely Fuller does not want to contribute to extending that. That's already firmly established. I'm trying to end the system of white supremacy through individual persons' efforts. It's called the open air concept. So you don't want to even go down the road of establishing some type of quote-unquote institutions with four walls and a pastor and a choir and all of this. And all of this, the traditional way that black people particularly have been taught to do things, all right, which I'm not criticizing that.
Yes, sir.
I'm just saying the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept is a compensatory concept. It's to fill in gaps in between all of these other things that are going on, because there's a lot of things that are missing, and it's addressed to the individual, what the individual person can do each and every day. Now, people are supposed to repeat what I'm saying and whatnot, but, they're not supposed to be soliciting funds for it.
Okay.
I'm still confused about bootlegger because you got, say, I will use your words, you got a bootlegger or bootleggers out there that's quoting you verbatim and getting paid for it, and it's not like they're, I would say, destroying your work, but they're putting your work out there and giving you props for your work. But at the same time, they're getting paid hand over work. I just thought that, I don't know if it's wrong, right?
Well, that is not the thing to do if they're getting paid. I mean, because my work is when they pay me when they buy the book. And so someone who is saying, now, I'm going to repeat what Neely Fuller is saying, but you're going to pay me for it. Well, I would have problems with that.
Okay.
And I think anybody should have.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going on up there.
Yeah.
They're getting paid for
Why
your work.
why would I pay you to repeat to me what Neely Fuller said?
And you say this is going on, brother?
I mean, it's been on. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's been on, and the whole concept, the whole thing about it is, it's informing people, but at the same time, they're not getting any money for that work.
Yeah.
That mean your work being spread out there, and you're like, it's been like 2 years you've been trying to get distribution, and I find that to be unacceptable. I mean, I don't want to criticize. I just want to give constructive criticism. But you got people that have your work, and they're all across the globe making millions from it. And it's just sad to see that the source of this information, person that has this information, can't get out there and distribute it across the globe.
Okay. Thank you so much for your call.
And I respect you. I respect Bobby. I appreciate the work, and any constructive criticism or anything I could help to further along this information, which is valuable information, I'm there for it.
Okay. Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay. And Mr. Fuller, before I go to the commercial break here, would you care to address that? And I didn't know that there are people suspected of making millions of dollars off of your fine work. I find that very disheartening myself.
Well, they ought to stop doing it because it's not compensatory. It comes under the heading of really something that is anti-compensatory.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
It's really anti. I mean, some people even call it a hustle, whatnot.
Yeah.
And why are you doing it other than to make money? And you shouldn't be doing that. That's not the purpose. We're supposed to be solving a problem here.
Solving a problem. That's right.
Not making a problem.
Okay. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I would like to just share with you, and it is really called Fightback. Very good. Fightback is a legendary citizen advocate and political agitator. Bob Fortakis revives his public affairs talk radio program called Fightback. The confusion of disputed election results, unequal cuts to public school funding, and hate groups and speeches are only some of the issues that Brother Bob Fortakis takes to the task. Now, Fightback with Bob Fortakis broadcast on Wednesdays on TalkTainmentRadio.com, and he's a very good advocate here in the city. From Detroit, Michigan, knows all about that stuff, probably could address a lot of things that haven't been said about the problem in Flint. But anyway, if you want to hear that, it's right here, and it is exclusive on Talktainment Radio, and that is radio, the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Mr. Fuller, we usually have you at some point, usually at the beginning, have a few words, something you've seen in the news or something you have an opinion about, and we're going to take this time now to open that up to you and your thoughts.
Well, I will refer to something that I saw in the paper recently. In fact, it was this morning. I don't have it right before me right now, but it's on the last page, I believe, of the Washington Post, where a lady named Miss Kathleen Parker, I believe her name is, and she said something to the effect of about using the word America as being an idea. And I have been saying that over and over again. And also, what is that idea? Well, it's an idea that people can be the type of people that people ought to be. I think that's, I don't want to misquote her, but I think that this is what the gist of what her article was, that people can be what they ought to be, whatever that is. And I would say people should be people who are humane. Now, this is me talking. You can't be an American and mistreat people. That's really what it comes down to. This is me talking now.
Okay.
Not Miss Parker. You can't be an American and mistreat people. So, under the system of white supremacy, no one has qualified to be an American. And you can extend that if you look at the definition of what an African or an Asian is. The same thing would, in my opinion, apply. to those two words. American. Now, it's three words here. American, African, Asian. If you are a person who mistreats people, or if you are a person that is in a system, subject to a system, where people are being mistreated intentionally, like the system of white supremacy, then you cannot be an American, you cannot be an African, and you cannot be an Asian, because the literal definition of those words is that you are a person that does not mistreat people, and you do not allow people to be mistreated. But since people are being mistreated all over the world as we speak, there's no place where somebody is not being mistreated, then no one is qualified for the title of American, African, or Asian. We need to be very specific in our definitions and just stop just throwing words out here like words don't mean anything, or that words might mean anything at all. Because if they mean anything at all, they don't mean anything specific. So words should be very specific, have very specific definitions, like the word justice should have a specific definition, something you can measure. And the word American, the word African, the word Asian should mean the same thing. People strutting around saying, I'm proud to be an American. Well, are you qualified to be one? Well, if you're not, you have no business calling yourself one. Mm-hmm. And how can you call yourself an American, an African, or an Asian in a system of white supremacy, and that's the dominant system on the entire planet?
All righty. This is Mr. Bobby on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can call in if you'd like at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com, and we'll try to get to your questions quickly. We're about $800 short, maybe a little less now that some people have hit that donate button on the on that PayPal. But we're about $800 short, so all you need to do is to go to the talktainmentradio.com homepage and hit the donate button on the left side of the homepage, and then click donate, and then whatever the amount you're going to give, then click total, then click on charge card, and then fill in the pledge amount, and you're done. You're done. You can even print your receipt. But for those that want to mail in, you can do that by mailing into the letter K and the letter E, World Network, LLC, doing business as Talktainment Radio, 462 Walnut Street. Now, this is important. Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206. And even more importantly, please put your email address on that so that Brother Ed can and the team can get you your receipt. And that is to edozier@talktainmentradio.com for that tax-deductible receipt. You really want to do that. That's for sure. We're speaking with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the author of the very fine book. I'm looking at it right now, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. And there's also a word guide that goes with that. And I understand from Mr. Fuller, you can go to that site, but right now there's something going on, Mr. Fuller, with that?
Yes. If you go to producejustice.com, you won't be able to get the book right now. It's temporarily out of stock. And also that website is going to be updated and whatnot, but that'll be in about 2 weeks. It'll probably take about 2 weeks, I have been told, approximately 2 weeks, and then the situation will be resolved in such a way that people can go to producejustice.com and be able to get the textbooks.
That sounds good. By the way, Mr. Fuller and myself are not compensated by the money that you send in your donations. We're not compensated by that. So the book and the donations are separate things. Mr. Fuller is not involved with the donation part. Neither am I, for that matter. That's altogether different. Okay, let's go to phone lines number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question? Line number 1? Line number 1, you are now on. Okay, there you go. Okay, yeah, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Mr. Fuller. I'm a long-time listener. But anyway, I wanted to get some advice. I have a young nephew I'm in L.A., and I have a young nephew in Nebraska, and he's 19, and he wants to leave and move back out here. His mom was killed out here a while back, and he was sent out there to kind of get raised by in a better environment. But now he wants to come out here, and I want a way to explain to him that, you can't really escape from the issues that you have, especially when you're young and black. Those issues, they may follow you, but you need to understand racism. I just don't know how to kind of articulate that to him so that he can understand as a young person. I know it's kind of hard reaching him sometimes, but do you have any advice for me? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your call. Mr. Fuller?
The compensatory code says that all problems are solved by what? Through the process of questions and answers.
Yes, sir.
So evidently, anybody who has questions, and everybody has questions. I have questions. Every day when I get up, I have questions. I mean, what am I going to do today? Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to be doing when I get where I'm going? And is it going to, and the answer to every question in every move that I make, is it going to produce a constructive result? And that's the one thing that you can put on his mind, or any person's mind. Put it on Neely Fuller's mind. Whatever you're doing at the time that you're doing it, whatever you're planning to do, whatever you think that you should be planning to do, is it going to produce a constructive result? Because everything in the universe, every move that anything makes, an alligator, every move that alligator makes, every move that a bird makes, a bee makes, a duck makes, is going to have a result that is either constructive or non-constructive. And this is in a very imbalanced world. You're born into a world that is completely off balance. So therefore, we are all out of balance. We're not in the balance that we should be in, but we should try to find a balance. Balance between people. Balance between people and animals and creatures. Balance between people and things. Balance between animals and insects with each other. None of this is in balance. So whatever move you make, if he's traveling from one place to another, and this is a part of the code, it's not so much where you're leaving, it is where you are going when you do leave. Is it going to be an improvement? And if it's going to be an improvement, how is it going to be an improvement? See, just questions and answers. Well, questions have answers. It's just a matter of finding out what is the correct answer to the question. And most questions are about problem solving. The person stops you on the street and say, where's the nearest bus stop? That's a problem. Person is trying to find the nearest bus stop. They're trying to go in a direction that they need to go in order to get something solved. So if a person says to you that they don't have a problem, don't try to give them one.
Yeah. All right.
It's only when the person says they have a problem, then you ask the logical question, what is the problem?
What is the problem?
Yes.
Exactly.
And if they say, well, I have the solution to the problem, then you say, oh, then go with the solution that you have. Duh. I mean, where, all things are solved, everything without exception, through the process of questions and answers. So if the person says, I don't have any problems, then don't try to give them one.
Yeah.
It's only when they come and say, look, I have a problem. Something came up that I didn't expect. Then you ask the logical question, what is the problem? Okay. And then when they spell it out to you, you use logic to try to make a suggestion, if you have one, about how to solve the problem. Now, if they say, well, I don't want to do that, then that's their answer. That's their answer, and leave it be.
Yeah, end of the debate or whatever.
End of the discussion right there. They say, I don't want to do what you said do to solve the problem that I said that I have. So therefore, you might have a suggestion then. Well, then you go and find whatever it is that you think will solve the problem that you said that you have. End of story. And start talking about something else. That's been resolved.
Thank you, my sister, for that call. Thank you so much, and keep listening. Let's get to Renzo's question. Renzo, here it is. Oh, wait, let me do this first. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you'd like to call in, you can still do that by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. Mr. Fuller, Renzo writes this. He says, Mr. Fuller, do you consider watching the updated version of Roots as constructive?
I don't know. I looked at a portion of it, maybe the first 5 minutes or so, and then I had to go and do something else. So I didn't see the entire sequence of events presented on my television screen under the title of Roots. But I'm saying that anything that has a constructive effect on people's thinking, so the people who it is a plus. So the people who looked at it can say, now, what, in looking at that TV series, what effect did that have, in truth, on how I see the world that's different from what it was before I looked at it? How do I see things now, and what was I inspired to do as a result? Because anytime you look at anything deliberately, seek something out, whether it's a movie or a TV presentation or stage play or a concert or a ball game, anytime you go and look and make an effort to do anything that you choose to do, look at one thing. What was the result? That's a question of you having had that experience, and was the result constructive or non-constructive in your thinking or in your overall reactions? Did it have a constructive effect? That's the only thing that you measure by, including listening to what you call sounds, called music or noise. Did it have a constructive or non-constructive effect? And you measure everything by that. By, was it an improvement in your way of thinking and your way of speaking and acting as a result of whatever the experience was in any area of activity? And that would apply to looking at a TV series of any kind, whether it's entitled Roots or Empire or the Second World War or the Peloponnesian War or How to Grow tomatoes, or whatever it is that you choose to make a part of your existence experience. Did it have a constructive effect? Because everything, without exception, is going to be in one of those two categories. Every move you make is either constructive or non-constructive. So under the United Independent System, you as an individual have to determine that yourself.
Okay. Question here. We were having a discussion earlier this week, and a question came up about what's on the cover of your book, and a discussion, not a debate, came up, and a statement that you have on here says the people who have the ability to eliminate racism do not have the will to do so, and the people who have the will to do so do not have the ability. Could you elaborate more on that?
I'm an example of that last part of that statement. I have the will to eliminate racism, I think. I'd like to think that I have the will. Maybe I don't. You know, that could be contested too. Maybe I haven't shown enough will. But I have the will to eliminate racism. I always think about it. I wake up in the morning thinking about it. Ever since I first started writing about it and whatnot, it has consumed most of my thinking. This business about racism and how to get rid of it and replace it with something better like justice. But I don't have the ability. And why is it that I don't have the ability? Well, I just don't have the ability because I haven't done it. So you either, this is what some people call a zero-sum game. You either do it or you don't. And talking about doing it and planning on doing it and wanting it to be done and hope somebody does it and all this type of thing, that's one thing. Getting it done, that's something else.